Ready to go live. You're on live.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome. Tim Wiegel, Sven Dill, welcome to our show here, Agile Leadership Spotlight. Today we're going to talk about Obeya, very interesting word, and how that fits to leadership. Tim, Sven, would you like to introduce yourself maybe a little bit?
Sven, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Of course, like the oldest first, if you so want here now. Well, yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks, Mike, for the invitation and the opportunity to have that little conversation about a topic that is really close to my heart. I'm an agile coach, and I come back from a project management background, so to say, and worked in automotive industry. So I had a lot of touch points with lean thinking and with lean projects and approaches. And then I made a jump into, let's say, the agile world, becoming an agile coach at one of the big Dutch banks in the Netherlands, and working for them in Belgium and in different other countries. And there I got in contact with that Obeya concept, and I met Tim, and that was actually the first time I heard about that word. And starting, I think, 4 or 5 years back, when we met the first time, I saw the first time this energy that the people have that are in this room together in this place. And since then, I'm trying always, when I'm coming in organizations, to really like bring that tool somehow in the discussions, because I'm working as an agile coach over the different parts of an organization. I'm German, I'm living in Belgium, I'm working in different organizations all over Europe. And in the end, they all have a bit, let's say, similar issues. How to bring that alignment together with an idea of autonomy that we have often related to agile ways of working. And some people feel like we are having only chaos. We don't know anywhere. Everybody's doing what he wants. And management has that feeling like, oh, we lose control. We don't know what's going on. And then it is a bit, let's say, an interesting conversation that you can start with, thinking like, okay, what's the problem here to solve?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Awesome. Welcome. So, Tim.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Tim Wiegel. I'm from the Netherlands, live close to Amsterdam. And in 2016, I started working full-time with Obeya. One of the reasons being that I've had a lot of different roles in organizations, also in a lot of different types of organizations. But I kept running into the same problems. And I think, like Sven mentioned, it's at some point I came across Obeya. For me, I was working with parts of that, but I didn't know it was a thing. So when it became a thing, it was just, this can mean so much to organizations, with the energy that Sven was mentioning in teams, but also the alignments, the improvement in decision making, etc. So I sort of set it out to be my mission to help develop better leadership in this world, to create a better world as well. And this is one of my main tasks day to day. I also tend to dream about Obeya, so I try not to overdo it, but I have to say it's actually kind of difficult.
Right. Awesome. So my name is Mike Leber. I'm your host today. And the topic, not only Obeya, but it's also about leadership and leadership teams. So that's even, I would say, even a more complex topic. But for the beginning, I would love whoever wants to pick it up first to dive a little bit into what can we think about Obeya? I mean, what is Obeya? And maybe you can explain it in a way that you don't need any technical background to understand it. Let's see how that goes. Who goes first?
Shall I?
Yes, give it a try, Tim.
Give it a try.
I'll give it a start. Also, maybe because my background might help a bit. It's a real background. It's not a layover. So an Obeya looks like a place or a big room, actually, where you can go, where you find all these visuals on the wall. That's also a bit of the deceiving part about the Obeya. It's actually not really just about the visuals. The visuals are helpful, but it's actually about the leadership team that uses the visuals and that works with the visuals to see, learn, and act together. So if you would say, how would you define an Obeya? Well, yeah, it is a big place. It's a big room. You will find visuals there, but the most important part is that the leadership team comes there to align their thoughts, their minds. Mm-hmm. They focus on what's important, and they have their conversations there. And from there on, decision-making will go and through the rest of the organization. So for me, using the Obeya, if you use it for leading your organization, that's really what it's about.
All right. And I think if we're a little bit naughty, we might say, it's a Toyota concept, right? Or it somehow comes from Toyota. We all, some love it, some can't hear it anymore. But to be a little bit more serious, Toyota is obviously known for lean management, everything around lean, Toyota production system. And Sven, I think you have a strong background in lean too, right? So the first question, I mean, we already heard about alignment, but what is Obeya really, trying to help us with beyond just,
For me, and you are right, I have a strong lean background, and when I came diving into Agile, I realized, wow, they have things in common. What is it that they have really in common? And I'm always thinking about it's this continuous improvement, which is the basis of both. And where you look maybe in a lean environment or in a lean approach, you look more into the processes in a tool, how the things are really done. And in an Agile way, you are looking more about the people. But you need actually both. And for me, this is really also what in an Obeya comes together, where you have really the interaction of people, individuals in interaction, if you so want. Mm-hmm. They become more important than the processes and tools, but you have both, that you need both in it. Especially a big organization, they need to have certain processes in place. But what the Obeya really will help you with is making sure you do the right things and doing them right. Mm-hmm. So that's also one of that big words that you always bring on the table when you talk about lean. Mm-hmm. But in fact, it is about this. It's on the basis of the visuals that Tim already mentioned that are on the wall, to really see, are we measuring the right things? Are we taking the right decisions based on what we see there? And how transparent do we want to be? How transparent can we be? Because that's already maybe one thing where we will say, without that absolutely want for transparency, you will not be successful with an approach with Obeya.
Right. So that is a wonderful explanation. I think I once read somewhere it's about the war room, right? This English word war room, which also obviously nobody likes because nobody wants to be at war, especially not in companies, organizations with other people. But it brings me to a point, because we want to emphasize also a little bit leadership today. And we all know that leadership, top leadership in maybe larger, at least medium organizations, are rarely seen as teams. I'm not sure what your experience looks like, right? Saying, there is this typical CXO distribution of responsibilities, and now here comes big initiatives. Mm-hmm. So how do you see Obeya here coming into the play? Supporting maybe alignment of leadership teams?
Well, one thing, maybe I can start, Tim, there. One thing what I'm seeing, what is also the main task of leadership on each level of an organization, so to say, is making that strategy tangible and making understand that the next level in an organization is also understanding what is it that we want to reach together. Mm-hmm. And it comes again with the point of transparency, and I can talk also from my experience with certain organizations. When you see something happening like magically, to say if a C-level, the board, so to say, of a company is opening up, what are my personal objectives and my personal bonuses, to what are they related, that we have an open discussion about, okay, and how does our objectives fit together there? Not that everybody has hidden bonuses to say like, okay, if we go in that direction, I will get in that and that, and somebody else is getting the bonus only if we go in the totally that other direction. For sure, we will not get an aligned approach in one direction. So if you get to that point to say like, no, we are open about it, what is really, let's say, also part of our private pocket,
Right.
the discussion is already a totally different to say like, okay, what do we really need to do? I'm trusting you here also, like putting everything on the table. Let's take that away and let's say like what is necessary to do now.
Right.
I think in addition to that, when I 10 years back in my career, I worked with management teams, and for example, it would be a team of 5 people, and they would be, I don't know, leading say up to 500 people or so. So let's say they each had 100 people in their department. Then I would ask each one of them, when do you think your team is successful? And I was referring to the management team that they were a part of. And I got 5 different answers from 5 different individuals. So I think this says something about alignment in a team like that, because yes, we use the same words, and yes, we have a slide deck with a strategy on it, and it has certain points that we need to address. But 5 different people have 5 different interpretations of what that may be. And I'd like to compare that in the Obeya to painting a picture. If I talk about a painting, for example, and I say, hey, there's a lake and there's a tree and there's a mountain, there's a little cow or a horse somewhere, and then you, Mike, may have something in your head that's maybe very abstract. And Sven may be thinking about a very realistic painting. So even though we think we talk about the same thing, but when we actually put it on paper, it looks completely different. So if you have that kind of variability or even space for interpretation in your leadership team that governs, say, or leads 500 people, imagine what that does to an organization that leads many, many more people. And if you go further up or down into that leadership system, there's a lot of variation, and ultimately the value is created on the work floor, right? So I really like to see the leadership levels, management and leadership levels, as the reverse pyramid. The bottom is on the the top is on the bottom actually, and it should support the value that's being created on the top. Yeah. So you just can't have that kind of variability, and I think that's one of the key things that Obeya provides. We start talking about the things that are important. We start visualizing them, and it actually opens our eyes, and you see it happening. That's so cool about helping teams getting started with Obeya. You see it happening right in front of you, and things start to click. And when they click, then they can take their own teams, their own departments towards that same click. But again, you need the human interaction. It doesn't come from paper. It doesn't come from a PowerPoint or OKRs. You need to have the conversation, and you need to be able to see what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I like that, Tim, and maybe I can add there also like something, because Mike, you said already we want to talk about leadership. It's also like that, the role of leadership is changing. It is not to tell people how they have to work. It is in the end putting out of the way what is in the way of the people to create value. And therefore it's really, like, say, necessary, to have that view on what are the problems that teams have and they cannot solve themselves. Because of course we don't want to be the kindergartner and take them in the hand and show them everything. No, we trust them that they do their very best in delivering value for our customers, but sometimes they are blocked by something they cannot solve themselves. And then it's the moment where leadership has to step in, where they have to react fast and help them to unblock things that they can continue working. And then we come also, like, again to one of the things in Obeya, it's not about firefighting, it's about fire preventing. So how can we make sure we learn of a certain situation and improve it, that it will not happen again, and that we really get this continuous improvement mindset in? And that's also like part of changing the leadership mindset, but also the leadership approach.
I'd love to pull in an interesting comment here from Stuart, who actually, I mean, I was thinking about that. Probably all of us are thinking about, right? Especially when you're from agile lean backgrounds. There's plenty of tools out there, and many organizations are trying many things. So how does that, I don't know, make a difference, as Stuart says here? Maybe also we could even frame it more like, how would it integrate, or what's your experiences here?
Yes, it's right, and yeah, I'm always get asked also, what is Obeya? Is Obeya a tool, or is it a method, or what is it? Like, we have these discussions also about agile. It's a mindset, it's a method, it's a methodology. So I think indeed Obeya brings a lot of things together. It brings definitely visualization in the top, but it brings also like really a practical way of how to make continuous improvement part of the day-to-day job of a leader. And it brings also like something into life. We often hear, let's say, when we hear from agile coaches, leadership should also work in an agile way, or they should also feel what it means to have a stand-up meeting, to work in iterations, to have regularly reflections. So that's also, like, for me, a very big opportunity for leadership to feel it, to live it, and not only to say like, okay, agile is for teams, agile is for development teams, and I'm here the manager, I don't have something to do with that. So for me, it's also like to get that experience at the leadership level, and not only for playing and not only for trying it out, no, to also really feel what is the power that we have by being reflective, by having retrospectives from a perspective on working in a team together.
Right.
I agree with that. For me, Obeya, it's not necessarily a tool. I think I would rather call it like a way of working. But also, I'd like to emphasize that, for me, I always tell teams, I don't care how you call it. You don't have to call it Obeya. You don't even have to talk about that you're going to use a tool or a different way of working. I mean, it originates in a lean environment, right? Toyota production system. But at the same time, it's all very straightforward. It's the method itself is not very difficult. And also, if you look at, do we have to change our way of working? One of the questions I saw also is, does it make it more complex? I think it provides, if you transform your organization to like a lean or agile way of working, or even if you don't do that, even if you just have, waterfall teams working and doing production stuff, it's great. But you need to find a way of working on leadership level that's consistent, that works for you, that helps you align people, strategy, decision-making, priorities. And in doing so, you don't do anything different than what you already did. So when I help teams get started, we don't change your work. We just change a little bit how you talk about your work, how you interact about your work. And maybe it's a good moment to also take the model from my book.
Yeah.
5 key elements I would expect to find in the Obeya that helps leadership lead their organization. They need to have a goal. They need to understand what's important to be able to achieve that goal. They need to understand, okay, if that's important to us, how well is it going? They need to plan their work together. They need to act and respond, just like Sven just said. Say, hey, stuff's going on. Frontline teams have issues. We need to help them because they can't solve them themselves. What are we going to do? And they need to work on structural improvements, on continuous improvement with structured problem solving. So all of this should never be new to any leadership team. And if you remove the Obeya word from it, I mean, moving towards this way of working shouldn't be a bridge too far. It should certainly not introduce additional complexity. I would call it, if you say our teams have to go lean or agile, it would mean let's walk the talk, on leadership level. Let's do it. And I think that's a very important answer and value that Obeya brings to organizations. If I've seen many transformations where teams have to work Scrum, and from, okay, this Monday you guys do Scrum. And always, so what are you going to do on leadership level? You know, how's your work going to change? Yeah, we will have the agile mindset. Oh, great. What does that mean to you? You know, it's not specific. Doesn't actually help them change their way of working. And this working with Obeya, leading with Obeya, helps them, grasp, I guess, a way of working that's a bit more specific. That they have a bit more to hold on to.
Yes, and maybe not to misunderstood that it's not like that the leadership team should do an Obeya just to show that they are agile or that they do something different. No, it's more like also like to experience that what is needed for a change in your way of working, that you also can appreciate what is happening with the teams and not only expecting like we are watching you and we are there for you, but really, let's say, showing also like we change our way of working as well to listen to your needs, because that's actually like what is happening if you combine or if you connect the levels of the organization with the Obeyas and the boards or the teams, how they are working, and you find a new rhythm and routine, which is one of the principles of the Obeya, to say like, I had organizations where we implemented an Obeya and we had an issue in a team which they realized in the morning in their daily stand-up, and it was escalated just by design until midday on the top level to say like, oh guys, we need here an immediate response, we need really like to do something, and you are able to give back that information to your team members. That means for them, wow, actually it really changed something here, really like it's not only that we have to work in a new way, no, it looks like the whole organization got a change in how we are listening to each other and how we are helping each other to unblock impediments, for example.
Right. So the question from Stuart here, I mean, I think Tim already answered it somehow. Like, this could we summarize it like saying, well, actually the complexity is there anyway, right?
Yeah.
But the traditional ways of working might just hide it, and it might come back in various forms. But if we go the way which we even don't need to give a name, what I learned here, but it doesn't need to be called Obeya. We're just committing to, hey guys, let's be honest. Let's talk the truth and put stuff together, right? Let's talk about what we all see or maybe not see. Is that somehow maybe one approach to answer it?
I agree with that. And I think the complexity is there, but we don't always acknowledge it. And most of the complexity is in our heads. And because we then cannot see it, we think we understand each other, but actually we don't. So we don't even realize how big the complexity is.
Yeah.
So at the start of Obeya, it will help you structure things. It will help you solve the complexity. But again, it's also hard work because the complexity is already there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just disappear because we put some stuff on the wall. No, actually, the process of putting stuff on the wall is what reduces the complexity, because then we start to see things. When we see them, we understand them easier. And once we understand them, the complexity is dissolved.
Yes, and for me, a side effect is as well, if we change that approach from having, for example, one mega meeting of 8 hours every week or every 2 weeks where we talk about all the topics, issues that we have, and we are getting to somehow a daily interaction where we talk about really what is important to solve now, who needs to talk with him, brings also like a new way of collaborating to a leadership team. It's a totally another approach if I see each other each day, even just for 15 minutes or half an hour, then I see each other only for every 2 weeks, but then a full day and full packed with PowerPoint slides and so on. That has an impact also and supports for me a cultural change that you also normally want to see in an agile transformation or in digital transformation or wherever we are. And that answers also a need of this complexity, because we simply don't have time only seeing us every 2 weeks. We need to have time to see us more often, but then also more focus oriented.
Right, right. So let me see if that works. It works. So it hides myself. So for those, I'm not hiding behind the text here, but it's quite cool what Tobias wrote us here, because it brings us to the actual doing. And it is this question about, traditional distributed work, sometimes referred to Taylor. We're not used to do what we just talked about. And his question here, Tobias, is actually asking for tips, now really from practical background. How would I approach such a situation as a coach? And here's the magic word, convincing, again, right? It's like what we said, what we saw before. It's quite interesting that maybe it's not about convincing, but how do you invite for a dialogue that there is more than just reporting? I think that's what the question is about. It's not reporting. It's about achieving common objectives or something.
I'd like to take this opportunity also to reflect on what was said earlier about Obeya also sometimes being called a war room. And for me, Obeya is not a war room. It doesn't mean war room. And also looking at the facilitation technique of a war room, it's a very useful technique. It's a technique, when there's a crisis, you take all the information that comes up, everything that's at hand, you sit in the room together, you put it on the walls, you make a structure out of it. Slowly you start to understand the problem. Then the problem is solved. You dissolve the room. The war is over. Obeya is very different from that. You start from structure. And the goal is continuous improvement. It's continuous learning. There's no end to the war. You keep going. And also another word that you see a lot also in the internet, or people using it, I think misusing it. They say it's a control room. I come in here as a senior leader, and now I have control. I can control the organization. No, you cannot. It's an illusion. Obeya doesn't give you control. No, Obeya is there to see, learn, and act together. There's no control over complexity. You cannot steer it. And most organizations are regarded as high complexity organizations. So having said that, I think one thing that I always do when I help teams get started is to explain to them what Obeya is. And that there's a big difference between coming there to make sure that all the reports are green, the traditional project management report, the watermelon report. Everything shows green, but all the customers are unhappy. What's going on? Well, it says green here, so it must be okay. No, we come here to see, learn, and act together. And that means that also when you start doing this with the management team, that it needs to be very clear to them that we need to expose problems in order to see them so we can work on them. So what we do here, if all the reports are green, we have a problem. And I think introducing that in the I like to do that before we actually get started with Obeya, because using Obeya is a pretty big investment. But the worst thing you can do is take all your existing reports, slap them on the wall, walk into the room, make it look beautiful. It looks awesome. Great, we're in this room. Okay, so what now? What's going to happen? Not much. I can tell you. In 12 weeks, you'll find out you have the exact same problems and trouble that you had before. So you need to prepare the management team. Guys, we're going to do something different. We're going to come in here to learn. We're going to come in here to see. It's going to be difficult. It's going to ask all of your brain power. You have brain power. Don't worry about it. But it's going to, need to be activated. And we're going to learn. It's going to be difficult. We're going to be developing the stuff here. It's also it's not like an Obeya is finished in 3 months when all the reports are on the wall. No. It's a continuous journey of learning. And I think that's very important to have that perspective present when the team starts, but also have them agree and commit to it. Because you will need a coach to help change the behavior if this is not their normal way of thinking. You will need somebody who's not part of the management team to help them reflect, to guide them on trying to make decisions that support learning rather than decisions that support achieving short-term objectives.
Right.
Yeah, maybe to add from my experience there also, I would start with asking questions. What is really feeling the biggest problem at the moment in that leadership team or in that part of an organization, and to see, let's say, okay, what do we know about that and how can we make that problem somehow visible? And then also, like, a second part, what often organizations have is like, how well is the strategy understood at the lowest level in your organization? How many team members know exactly my daily job, my daily task is paying in the strategy? How, why, what? And that's also like a way, if a company has a problem with that, if you realize they don't know actually why they do certain things, that might be also like a way what we can solve with an Obeya, to have that focus back and to bring really, let's say, a way in there, like maybe together with OKRs, because that's the nice thing. Let's say Obeya works very well with the concept of OKRs, works very well also with the concept of flight levels, because we are also looking at the different levels of an organization there. So if we have that as an issue, that's also like something which can be really well and really fast be solved by saying like, okay, if we don't find that link of what we are doing in our Obeya, in our strategy, why the hell are we doing it then? So what's the reason? What's the value behind that work then? So to bring also like a very nice, cascading of the strategy until the team level in an organization.
Right. Now, I think we already touched it a little bit. And, transparency is a nice thing in theory. And if everything goes right. But as Tim already said, this is not realistic, or say the other way around. This is not the need for this approach. Our approach is to see challenges. I don't even call it problems now, but the challenge here I see, and that's the question, what do you think is the minimum commitment you need from a leadership team to even embark on such an initiative? Because again, we've seen leaders, I believe, who watched transparent posters for a few weeks in order to tear them off the walls then and just say, guys, we need to focus on something else, right? Because it was literally exposing their own weakness. Potentially they might feel like that. Or what you just said, Sven, if I go into a team and a leadership team and say, hey, what's your problem here, right? What will they say? Well, will they look at me and say, well, our problem is communication and we've got no idea how to go for our strategy and alignment is really sucking here. Very unrealistic, right? So what is, from your experience, where did you see the actual success, the magic happening? What was contributing and what helped for a leadership team to get there?
I'm probably in a luxury position that I only meet teams that want to get started with Obeya. But I have been in organizations where I really felt Obeya it can be a solution for you guys. It will be a solution for you guys. And they just didn't want to go for it. What is needed of a management team in those cases, what they did not have was the understanding that they did have a problem, therefore no willingness to work on it. I think then you shouldn't push Obeya. Never push Obeya, I would say. Never plan, okay, everybody's going to work with Obeya now. You guys, you need to get started on your Obeya and do it from Monday onwards. That's not how I think Obeya works. I think Obeya should work based on a pool. Yes, we do have some understanding that things could be better. We're not really sure what's wrong, maybe. Maybe you can help us see that. Let's talk about that a little bit. And if there's a solution, that would be great. But I think any leadership that wants to get leadership team or any team that wants to get started with Obeya must have some awareness of the fact that they have a problem and some willingness to work on that.
I would say I would also not use only the word problem, because for me it's maybe already enough to realize we are living in a high complexity, and admitting managing complexity is hard, and maybe it's also an illusion that we even can manage complexity. if that is in the team of this leadership there, then they might be also open for doing it differently. And if they still have in the mind, like saying, okay, we need to make something different, but overall, I don't think we need to change something, like what Tim said. Oh, we have already all the KPIs there. We just need to put them nicely differently on the wall. And maybe we don't have this 1 day, 8 hours session. We do it every 2 weeks for 2 hours, and then it's solved. No, that's not working. But if they have this awareness to say, like, pandemic, I mean, nowadays we don't need to explain anybody anymore what is VUCA world, because everybody realized what it is. But having the click, that means also I have to behave differently, I have to manage, I have to lead differently. That needs to be there.
Right.
I agree, and I think in addition to that, I have helped teams started that said, well, you know, we think Obeya is cool because we went into somebody else's Obeya room. We want to use it, but Tim, we don't want to spend too much time in it. So figure out a way for us to be able to go into the room, find the answers, and then move on with it. So I tried really hard. I tried to facilitate the whole process. I tried to help them put information on. I tried to find the information for them. It was not working at all. It was definitely a fail for me, because the leadership team does need to invest in the stuff that's on the wall. It's actually their stuff. It can never be the stuff of a coach, a facilitator, or a project manager, somebody else. It's the guys who are in the room who use it. They own it. And if they're not willing to invest in that ownership, if that's not present, then don't do it. Is my recommendation. It will likely fail, and then they have the tools to say, or the ammunition to say, guys, you know, another tool called Obeya, we tried it, didn't work.
Yeah.
No? Okay. So my recommendation is always, if you do it well. And once you do it well, you can call it Obeya. But if you do it cherry picking, step by step, you know, just a little bit of that, a little bit of this, it's not going to work. It's a system, and the whole thing needs to be connected. You need to invest time in that to make it work. It will work. But if you don't invest the time, if you're not willing, if you don't have the drive to solve that issue, then it's not going to work.
Okay. We already talked about having a second session here, which goes a little bit more into the practicabilities, to say, you know, we're currently a little bit navigating through the concept, but there's obviously, most people would rather love to hear and see, yeah, but how to, right? And how would that work? How would I approach it? What could be first steps? So, I mean, a first thing I can point to, and that's where we also came together. You wrote a book about it, Tim. I think, Sven, you're somehow involved with the German translation, as far as I know.
I have it here.
Both here, great. So that fits together. Leading with Obeya. Again, it's not Obeya as such. It's leadership. It's leading with Obeya. So for anyone who wants to have a look into the book and probably read a couple of more details. But some practicability now, just to think about where if I'm maybe in an average size or even larger organization, what's the level of application? I mean, is it really this, like, wherever the head of the organization is, which sounds like a terrible concept anyway. We'll talk also about this, by the way, for other purposes, like think about hair, with a totally different concept of organization. But where would you put it? Is that on any level of any initiative, or is that somehow a useful limit, what you would even grasp with one of these Obeya rooms?
Sven, you want to?
Well, I have done it actually on all levels of an organization, and okay. Even we have done it for just certain initiatives, meaning a program or a project. What you need to think about, it's like, okay, you need actually everybody that is involved in a certain level of an organization, or in a project or program. You can start there. You need, of course, people who has the drive to do it. You might need a sponsor of the level above to give also, let's say, a bit of I would say like safety, or to say like, yes, okay, guys, you can do it. But nevertheless, even that is helping, it's not needed. I remember, let's say, I had one senior manager who just came over to Amsterdam and saw the room, this Obeya room, and said like, oh, I would like to have something like that. He came to me as agile coach and said, Sven, would you like to do that with me? And that was the beginning of a wonderful 6 months learning journey, where I had also the luck that Tim was my mentor, and we really worked regular together, also with other coaches still from that time. And you saw each week how they even realized themselves, how they improved, how they got better. We got even in the spotlight, more and more people came as observers in the sessions, because they heard, oh, these guys are doing something totally different, and they don't send meeting minutes around anymore afterwards that nobody really understands who was not in the meeting. No, everybody knows in this 15 minutes, if you want to know what's going on, you just go there, you listen, and you see where are the problems, who's solving it, what is the current status of the issue. So it was amazing, and you can do that, as I said, at each level. And I think also, like Tim, started at different levels of organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, it really doesn't matter where you start, because the main benefit will be for the team itself. And then I have had teams that would like start in the middle of the organization, and they were worried about, but our senior management is super traditional. They just give us new priorities every day, and then suddenly the whole world changes again, and then they give us 5 priority ones, and what do we do with it? And then the most benefit that a team has is that they start seeing, learning, and acting together. So this is our goal. We are a team. This is our common goal. This is what we're going to work on. We put that on the wall. Right. And then we put all the other things that matter to us on the wall as well. So everything that matters to us as a management team is on the wall. Now, they start seeing how well are things going. And some things are going well, some things are going not so well. So imagine you have like 5 things that are not going not so well. They have to start to make choices. They see it now, so they can make choices. How bad is it going if it's not doing that well? So maybe this will help us prioritize. But at the same time, if tomorrow the team starts, they have their Obeya, it's working, cool. Tomorrow, a senior leadership walks in, we have another priority, and we have to push this for tomorrow, and then suddenly, instead of saying, okay, we'll just do it because we'll try to squeeze it in somewhere, we don't really know what it means because we can't really see how it affects our system anyway. Instead of doing that, they say, okay, why don't you come into our Obeya room? Because, if we are going to do what you want us to do, it will have some impact on the decisions and the stuff that we've already got running. So we think if we want to pick up this priority, we skip this, but we do that. So do you agree with us that we actually skip this? Because if we follow up to your request, we just cannot do it anymore. Oh, by the way, this will also impact some other projects that we've got running there. So you need to realize that this is the consequence of your decision, the request that you're making. So suddenly you have a platform on which you can have the discussion about the impact of choices, decisions, and priorities somewhere else in the organization. And because you can now see it and stand in front of the picture, the painting together, the other person starts seeing it as well.
I fully support that, and I love it. And because in many organizations, this consequence management is totally forgotten. Changing priorities are happening. We have to live with that, because as we said, we live in a complex environment. So be prepared to it, but also see the consequences that it has. If we change a priority on one side, that means in the end, something else will not be done. And be, again, transparent about it, because otherwise you are bringing the whole organization that is below that level of decision. They are totally losing what's going on here. We are feeling like in an absolute chaos. Today you say that, tomorrow you say that, and on our desk the work is until our head.
Right. We're nearly close to the end of today's session. I think most people will ask, okay, where would I start? Is there any structured approach to introduce this? How would I structure it? How would I roll it out? How would I come to agreements? How would I connect it to certain methods? But all of this, I think, first of all, again, there is the book, there is there is possibilities to learn about it. And again, we want to talk more about, let's say, about the implementation. If anybody is, eager to, see more right away, here's a link to your website, which is, I think, sort of a companion to the book. And probably there's a couple of case studies and other materials to look into it. I think what you showed before, Tim, you referred to it as a reference model.
Yep.
To
this one's on there as well.
Yeah, beautiful. So there is a structured approach. But a final question I have for today, of course, everyone, we had this already somehow, especially in the agile lean world, thinking about, didn't I hear about similar concepts, with SAVE and what else? And this scaling methods and whatever we have here. Are you aware of it? Did you see any implementations or approaches where none of these methods were actually needed, but you basically just, came in from a, let's say, original motivation to say we need to improve communication, decision making here, and everything else was more or less going an evolutionary path?
Yeah, sure. Some building companies that we work with, they're not necessarily lean or agile based. And they said we have a leadership challenge, and we think Obeya might help us solve that. I always say it doesn't matter whether you do lean, agile, waterfall, or whatever else method. The things that I just pointed out in the model, they're common sense. You have to do them anyway. So why not do them in a visual way that actually helps you structure your minds and helps you make better decisions? So yeah, for me, it can be applied in any environment, and I have seen it being applied and also being in demand for it outside lean and agile oriented organizations.
And maybe a final question, and it will be the final question, just again, a little bit about application, because we talked about it. It's about bringing people together. We started the conversation about leadership teams, but obviously we don't want to get stuck with, some team on top of an organization. We want to open rooms and doors. From your experience, maybe Sven, you have a couple of cases. How did that work out or play out to really get leaders, maybe even executives, together with any team member and really talk about the hot topics which are on the wall?
Yes, and that's maybe where sometimes the coach has to come in or be with them in working with Obeya, because it is not common that a C-level executive is talking really with somebody from a team or let's say a line manager. So sometimes it's also like where a coach somehow needs to facilitate a bit, because we are bringing some cultures together. So on the other hand, even there again, we talked about lean. Gemba walk is something new, not something new neither, where we say also like each leader should be every day on the floor and looking like what's going on and listen to the problems that the people has. Maybe we forgot about it. Maybe we forgot sitting on the 14th floor in a big organization and don't know anymore what is really going on the floor. And this example, what I said in the beginning, that an issue can be escalated within a couple of hours until the top and can be solved immediately, that will have such a tremendous impact in that person on the floor, which this problem has been solved. He will also, let's say, believe maybe again in, actually they care. Actually, my management, my leadership team is caring about my problems that I have.
Cool. Final thoughts from Stuart. It looks like he became interested in and is going to do something in his daily work and his practical work. We're going to talk about practical things next time. I'll have some questions for you, but I would be curious if anybody else here watching this video has some hands-on questions they just want to take away to get started. And
can I
Tim,
make?
Sure.
Yeah, can I make one? I think it's a very important comment to make, and I should have probably made it at the start. But when I say leading with Obeya or talk about leadership,
yes,
for me, leadership is everywhere in the organization.
Right, right.
So we're not talking about the top, smallest pyramid of the organization. I think we are talking about all the layers in the organization that have to think about how do we lead our team to the next goal, and this can go down to the work floor, or up to the work floor rather.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So. That's I think it's an important thing to mention. We're not just talking about an exclusive audience here, not at all.
Yeah, and so that's really a helpful comment because, as we said already, modern organizations don't tend to look like a pyramid anymore, right? We'll be having a very interesting conversation soon here on the channel with quite an insider, an expert on the Haier model. And for anybody who knows Haier, that's just an ecosystem. Sorry, that's not a hierarchy anymore. It's a living ecosystem. And so obviously it's about how can we make better communication, decision-making, and also collaboration, maybe even co-creation happening in such a complex ecosystem. And that's what it looks like. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for having been here. And again, it's not yet time today to get our hands dirty, but we're going to look into it. But for now, thanks very much for having been here.
Thank you
for having us. Yes.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.